Alright, so we are going to start from the basic position. White is ready to attack, but in this position never play silver to 6-7 because white can change his mind and push this pawn instead, right? And to go for rapid pawn engage. And to prepare for the bishop trade, it's always better to keep this silver back, but since it's already here, so this pawn push can be effective. So always try to know the right timing, and black can wait by pawn 2 for 6, and this pawn push is the main subject today. If black takes it, white can sacrifice the rook pawn to make this lighter, and pawn takes, silver develops. If this square was empty, this counter pawn push would have been a good one. After the bishop trade, the rook takes and silver advances, and since black cannot drop the bishop here, there is no good follow-up for black, and white is going to be better. So instead of taking it, silver to 6-7 at this point will be fine. And pawn takes, silver takes, rook to 7-2. And black calmly moves back. And if white pushes this pawn to offer bishop exchange, then lance to 9-8 will be a good option to wait. Of course, white would prepare for more aggressive line, right? And then black can push this pawn. You don't always have to focus on one single attacking line, and developing the castle will be also a good idea, because black can attack from the opposite side depending on the situation, right? So always remember to stay flexible. Of course, white can develop the silver instead, and then this edge bishop will be an effective way to attack. If white kicks the bishop, then bishop sacrifice can be made, and rook takes and pawn drop. If rook runs this way, silver drop to 8-2 will be fine, and if rook runs and pawn promotion, right? If rook runs this way, then bishop can be dropped to 7-2. Rook runs and pawn promotion, so black is clearly better, right? And all the way back to this position. And what about go to 4-2? And again, pawn push to 3-6 is good, and it's going to be the same. Silver to 6-7, pawn takes, silver takes, and rook to 7-2. In this position, black has two options. One is this, and then focal point pawn drop is a good book line, and rook takes, always take the pawn by the rook, and bishop to 6-6, and silver to 6-7. And white trades the bishop with the rook, bishop takes, and white defends. And before anything serious happens, black can block the rook in case he wants to trade the rook with the bishop. But it is already a little bit difficult for white to defend. If white defends like this, black can attack the square thanks to the one move advantage. So since this pawn has been pushed, so pawn to 3-5, is a good move, and white can't defend like this because black can keep going. If gold takes it, game is over, right? If white plays like this, then pawn push to 4-5 will be fine. But of course, white has an alternative plan in this position. That is to reposition the rook. In order to avoid pawn exchange, this would be the only way to defend, right? But then again, white can play rook to 7-2, aiming for repetition. And it is not going to be good for black if repetition happens, right? And if both players agree, they will have to restart a game, and they will also have to switch sides. So black has to play as a white, right? And in order to take the one move advantage, instead of bishop to 8-8, silver to 6-7 would be a good option. If silver develops, again this edge bishop will be strong. Since this bishop is no longer on this diagonal, pawn push to 6-4 will be good. But then black can target the pawn by rook to 7-5. If white pushes this edge pawn, now bishop's sack can still be made, and rook takes, pawn drop, rook runs, and again silver drop to 7-2, rook runs, and pawn promotion. In this case, white can drop the bishop here because the rook is on the central rank, and white can create a fork. But simply black can ignore the drop and take the rook, and bishop to 7-5, and rook drop to 7-1 will be fine. If white also drops the rook, then silver to 6-1 unpromoted would be a good option. And the rook can pin those pieces, and if rook takes the knight, he's going to lose the bishop, right? If bishop is removed, then white is going to lose the rook instead. And here's an example. If white saves the gold, then black can pick up the lance to drop it, for example, to 7-7. Oh, sorry, not this one. And gold takes the silver, rook takes, and bishop to 6-6. It is almost threat made because it is so strong, but black can simply take the bishop, and bishop takes, and in order to avoid the silver drop to 3-9, then black can defend like that, and next gold drop to 3-1 will be so strong. Alright, next time I want to talk about 3-pawn sack strategy, which can also be a huge threat if you don't know anything about this, so stay tuned. I hope it's been helpful and you like it. Thanks for your support, and see you all soon. Bye.